So today is the second podcast and we're here with Mohammed. Mohammed, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, how's it going? I'm Mohammed Malik, founder of Tajara Ventures. So Tajara Ventures is essentially an umbrella company under which we've got three main pillars. We have a venture builder, so we're really passionate about giving underrepresented founders or those with high potentiality to match them with the right problems to build out solutions to market constraints, right? So we've got that. The second bit is an angel syndicate, so that's our investing bit, which we're looking to hopefully build out into a VC as well in the near future. And then thirdly is the education part. That's where we're teaching, quote unquote, young people innovation, entrepreneurship, and in the age of AI currently, we're focused particularly on meta skills. That subset or that core kind of knowledge base as immutable, that is so powerful, and is one layer below all this changing AI LLM space as well. So things like public speaking, things like innovation as a mindset, and how to get into flow and how to learn. This is essentially Tajara Ventures. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me, by the way. Really appreciate it.
It's awesome. So let's get into some questions. I have a few I'd like to ask you just about your education platforms, because I myself have a community built around educating, which is currently just on the rise. So it'd be great to get some insights. So, number one is that you've built platforms to educate and empower, entrepreneurs, which is fantastic. What would you say the core mission is driving your education community, and how would you say it differs from traditional entrepreneurship education platforms?
Wow, that's a really, really brilliant question. I think the first thing that comes to mind, it's driven by young people. So the kernel of an idea came to me when I was actually, going to a college and speaking about entrepreneurship, and I realized how receptive these young people were to the ideas that I was sharing, much more so than to these entrepreneurs, some of them serial entrepreneurs that I was coaching on my full-time job as an incubator lead. So on one hand, you got this quote-unquote seasoned entrepreneur who doesn't really want to pivot their startup, and then you've got a young person aged 15 to 16, really receptive and doing really well in these kind of exercises I'm giving them, very, very high in what we call abstraction and conscientiousness, the idea to execute. So I'm like, wow, that gave me kind of an idea to sit back and think, okay, let me just test this out. So I went out for the last 3 years. We've been doing summer schools as well to test this idea. Coming back, realizing, wow, these young people really are receptive and able to build the future of tech, and really kind of their adaptability quotient is crazy. Like when we're talking about the ability to kind of move from one sector to another seamlessly. So what drives kind of 1% School, which is the education arm, is how can we better ourselves 1% every day, and also how do we build the future when the future is changing so rapidly? What are the key things that we should be learning in order to adapt to that future, and boiling those down to kind of key meta skills. And so far, the core of that has been innovation. How do we learn? So you can go to what particular ChatGPT, whatever it is, ask it questions, but what do you do with that knowledge? How do you actually execute on that? And that's the kind of systems thinking, the lean startup thinking that we're trying to teach, along with all the stuff that I mentioned to you, like speed reading and flow state and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's great. That's very interesting. What would you say, out of how long have you been running your education platform? I believe you said 3 years to me earlier.
Exactly, yeah.
I see. What would you say is the best lesson which you've learned, perhaps an entrepreneur succeeding in the 1% group, or perhaps something that you've learned from them or that you've taught them? What would you say is your highlight over those 3 years?
Literally, I was mentoring a group of kind of 15-year-olds just yesterday, 2 days ago, and I said, listen, it feels like you're mentoring me, because I'm learning so much from the mindset, and age is not age should never be a barrier. Like, I personally know 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds who are running companies in the Web3 AI space, and they're turning over $1 million kind of ARR to 10 million ARR. That's annual recurring revenue, which is far beyond majority of 30, 40-year-olds.
Yeah.
So age should never be a barrier. But for me, the biggest learning has been, number one, some of the best entrepreneurs are those who can instantiate what they're doing. So Sam Altman talks about this, a lot of these entrepreneurs talk about it. Try your best, whatever's in your mind, try your best to communicate that, distill it down to its bare essentials, and that's how you kind of get traction and movement and get people on your idea. So that's probably the most important thing. And for me, it's tapping into the people. You know, being hyper relevant has been my focus with the 1% School. That's why we've got like ambassadors. We're kind of uncapped, kind of, you know, giving them commissions or whatever it is, and they're the ones who are driving 1% School. It's not me really. I'm on the background giving the curriculum. They're the ones that are going forward and expanding.
No, that's fantastic. And you sound like you have some experience, because for me personally, you know, as you said, you're almost twice my age now, and I haven't ever heard anybody say that, you know, age is just a number. In the corporate world, people tend to verify age with knowledge. So have you had any experience working perhaps a corporate job, so you can have some insights as to how they'd think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was the youngest person for maybe 4 years. In my career. So first at a Big Four firm, so that's an audit company called Deloitte, which is the largest company, probably, or PwC in that sector. And secondly, at a boutique bank, I was the youngest person, and I felt the most immature, whatever it is. But I realized in hindsight, when you're in that kind of, you know, boardroom with some really senior partners who are equity partners at the very upper echelons of these corporate hierarchies, your opinion matters to them. In fact, they probably won't say this to you, but they're very keen on you know, hearing you out, and you coming in with your own lived experience is so kind of valuable and precious as well. So I've seen that when I've been not ego driven but genuinely curious, and also realize that I have worth in whatever I bring into the table, I'm able to give, you know, a really good impact into whatever room I'm in, regardless of the ages of the people there as well. So be true to yourself, realize that you do have a unique value, and I think it begins with that. And I'll just mention one small thing that was a huge game changer for me, and this probably wraps everything up in terms of age and whatever it is. I used to think that self-esteem was based on accolades, so Forbes 30 under 30, XYZ, whatever it is, but that's very detrimental to oneself. It's very limiting. I decided to shift my self-esteem to this notion that I am a learner. I'm consistently learning, I'm consistently building, and when I did that unlocked so much growth for me as well. So I'm always learning. Like, you know, if I fail, it's only feedback.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, I personally believe as well. I mean, failure is the most important thing, I think, because that's 100%. How you learn the most.
100%.
But I mean, I'm definitely still probably in a time where I'm tying parts of my self-esteem to materialistic objects, because I think that's what happens to a lot of young people. I think, you know, if you get this car, you get this house, you get this plane, then, you know, you feel better about yourself and feel happy. But then you get that and you realize that you need something else now to feel
100%,
happier.
100%.
So yeah, that's good that we both understand each other there.
Yeah.
So what are you currently doing with your students now in your 1% Discord? Because I currently run, I mean, AH Limited has just started. We've just reached the threshold of members, so we're going to be releasing the paid groups around crypto, real estate, tech, AI, and building the personal brand. So what are you currently working on with your students? Like, what's the next step for them? You said you partner in Imperial University, Oxford University, and also Cambridge. So what's your next steps?
Yeah, so no, Imperial and Oxford, Cambridge hopefully soon, maybe with your support we can unlock Cambridge as well. So currently with these students we have 2 offerings. One is a summer school, which is, you know, quite like, you know, I haven't seen anything like this, where we're learning, you know, leadership skills. You're coming down, getting hands-on, you're learning public speaking, the trivia. You're also doing a mini incubator. So you're coming in, building a team, you know, developing a solution and pitching and also meeting with some of the best entrepreneurs in London. We're doing that in Imperial and in Oxford. But with those, so we've got that, and then we've got an online offering, which is a 6-month course, which will, again, connect you with some cutting-edge academics, thinkers, as well as entrepreneurs. And you go from nothing to then having an idea which is actually scalable. So there's no course out there at all for people kind of, you know, even below kind of 20 to kind of, you know, get onto. So these are 2 things, and how we're nurturing the community is we're listening to the community every single time we're feeding back, and we're kind of pivoting and creating new courses every single time, making it more hyper relevant. And yeah, as soon as there's a new LLM, there's a new kind of agentic AI that's useful, we'll add it in to our course as well.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So you're keeping up with the newest refreshments on AI,
Exactly,
which
exactly.
is probably not an easy job, seeing as something
Oh,
new
no.
comes out every single day.
Tell me about it. Like people thought Manus was a DeepSeek moment. Then you realise it's built on Claude, and we're having to sift through a lot of agentic and kind of AI stuff all the time. So yeah, it is a kind of pretty arduous and mandrolic.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can do something regarding education platforms together at some
For
point,
sure,
like
for
you said
sure.
about
We'd love
Cambridge.
that, we'd love
You know,
that.
we can also expand online.
Yeah.
So tell us also, you were speaking as to how you're also in the venture business. So I had a specific question just built around this. So, as a venture builder,
Yeah.
what would you say is the most exciting project that you're working on right now? And how does it reflect where you see the market heading? Because we know that the market's in a tricky state right now.
Yes,
So how do
no,
you
for
think
sure.
that this company is going to handle the conditions of the market in a year to 2 years' time?
That's a brilliant question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is there's this problem that's been, it's the nightmare and the bane of a lot of people's lives in the AI space. That's the idea of the hallucination of AI. So we can relate a lot of that, and I'm making it simplifying it a lot, but we can relate a lot of that to kind of this probabilistic nature.
Twist it just a little bit.
Like the probabilistic nature of AI, right? So a lot of AI is essentially based on probabilities. So you'll always find that rounding error. You'll find that AI hallucinates to give you an answer.
Yeah.
So how do you tackle that? One thing, I myself am not a PhD in AI, but we managed to get PhDs in AI to help us, and that's the beauty of being connected. And like yourself, understanding all these spaces in Oxford to this golden triangle. So we get people that know things like neurosymbolic AI, can develop LLMs to be like, okay, we're now developing a principle-based AI, which has a much less kind of error rate, and gives us the ability to answer questions that maybe the current probabilistic AI doesn't. So without giving too much, and because a lot of it is currently kind of NDA, we are building something that hopefully will be principle based, and can do a lot that maybe OpenAI can't do potentially. I'm just putting that out there. So we'll see.
Potentially the new OpenAI you're working on.
We can potentially, yes. I mean, there's
Sounds
a lot of people.
pretty exciting.
A lot of people are saying the similar thing. So I'm also pragmatic. I'm saying, okay, there's a potential here, but we're going to have to test it out and see.
Yeah. So I'm sure you have quite a good network with other VC entrepreneurs. So what do you think is the main highlight in which all these different VC funds, venture capital funds, are investing in right now? Would you say it's AI because we know AI is going off, or is it tech, crypto? What are they looking to perhaps more traditional businesses, and perhaps looking at artificial businesses which are looking at automating those traditional businesses?
Very good question. So my mind goes to kind of my experience here in the UK versus Saudi. I go to Saudi a lot. So just interestingly, in Saudi, they're all about deep tech, right? So building deep tech hubs. I think recently they realized after kind of NVIDIA, the hype around NVIDIA hardware is really now it's sexy, it's important, it's everybody's focusing on that as well. So there's a lot of talks about building compute capacity, building data centers. But interestingly, deep tech is a huge focus in Saudi. But over here, amongst the VCs we're speaking to, yeah, it seems like everybody's speaking about the next kind of AI or next kind of Manus type of kind of architecture. But basically, either building foundational models, which is a huge cost, sunk cost, or buildings, which I think is a far more clever thing, which is existing infrastructure, just utilizing it and building your IP around how the architecture around existing things, like Manus showed us as well. So I'm actually probably more looking towards the latter than the former, particularly because we've got smaller check sizes anyway compared to these larger kind of Series A, Series B funds. But yeah, that's probably more my bag and understanding.
So talk to us, for the people who are watching this, who are perhaps possibly wanting to create their own VC fund or angel syndicate one day. How do you exactly tie in 4 business models across the same stream? Because how big is your team?
So at the Angel Syndicate, it's a very small team. It's 3 core people. But I'd say that we kind of split it up from sector to sector. So we've got an ex-Harvard angel, that's the person I was speaking to, that's like almost twice my age. And then you've got somebody who's in between in terms of age, and is the fintech guy, like the person in the kind of structuring side, and I'm the more bringing angels and startups and deal flow kind of stuff as well. So that's on the angel side. Like, yeah, that's our kind of team. And I think, look, my advice would be, number one, don't do it alone. Just like you did, you're networking, you're going to these places, speaking to people about your objectives.
Yeah.
And just like today, I got an email from a student at Boston University developing his own VC after having worked at a VC and realizing how limited he was. Just email saying, man, do you know any LPs that would be interested in this? Create your deck. So number one, here's the formula in a way. You have a kernel of an idea, you want to set up a VC or an angel fund. Think how you can start today very small. Whether that's you want to set up an incubator, you want to kind of go smaller, instead of a VC, do an angel. And then from there build up, understand your thesis, go in deep into your thesis, understand your moat. What do you bring as an individual into this proposition that maybe somebody else can't easily copy? That's your unfair advantage. And then just build your community out, because it's all about people. Like, honestly, one LP has changed the game for a startup that I spoke to recently. So you start building your network around that. So turn the eye inwards, and then understand yourself to then understand who you should bring around you. I think that's my key kind of takeaway from that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good answer.
Appreciate it.
So, given the current market situation, I'm not sure. I mean, personally, do you ever dive into cryptocurrencies or options?
Yeah.
So, how's your experience with that?
Myself, I initially so for me, I think, the OG, kind we talk about crypto, obviously, is HODL Gang. We're talking about Bitcoin, right, as an investing kind of vehicle and a class as well. I have, for my sins, looked in, the early kind of pump and dump coins and stuff like that, and there was a lot of promise with a lot of these when I later on kind of looked at them and realized, look, I personally am not going to use these kind of other than for altcoin pumping and dumping or understandings. But no, I mean, my initial kind of year or so looking into this, after that I decided that no, I want to focus my attention and energy particularly on the underlying technologies. So working with, for example, one startup called TakaDAO. They initially started off as a crypto, then pivoted off into kind of insurance on the DAO, so Web3. So we're seeing a lot of these startups in the crypto space now pivoting into different things. So yeah, I mean, initially I did. That's not my core focus right now in terms of crypto, but I would say HODL.
HODL, yeah. Like CZ says.
Yeah, exactly. Man.
So you said that you do lots of work in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
How would you say, the work life is different from perhaps where we are right now in London, England, compared to somewhere like Saudi Arabia? What's the cultural difference in perhaps work or even personal interests? What do you prefer, where do you think is the better environment for an entrepreneur to thrive?
Wow, really good questions. So first thing I would say would be in terms of differences. I remember how going into Saudi, I went on a delegation of businesses from the UK. It's very person to person focused, right? And it's also Saudi is also very diverse. It's like a mini continent. So it's an interesting thing to understand the cultural diversity within Saudi. So you'd find a particular kind of tribe or people, they act in a certain way compared to another as well. That's going into the bit of the intricacies, but generally, the idea is Saudi is a lot more people focused. You would go in not expecting a deal straight away. You go in expecting to make friends. And I give you one example of a good friend of mine who wanted to kind of seal the deal on an investment. Went in thinking, look, I need to pitch, I need to X, Y, Z. The guy says, the LP says, oh, let's go out, let's just have some food. And they went out, had an amazing time. And throughout this whole time, he didn't know that this LP was just scanning him as an individual. How does he interact with people? How does he interact with the waiter, the waitresses, whatever it is? And then by the end of the night, when this person's thinking, I've just wasted so much time, the LP says, by the way, whatever you wanted, you've got it. Shook his hand and said, I trust you as an individual. Let's make it happen. So Saudi has been hurt by, years and years of its neighbors, people from the West, countries, coming in on a very short-term basis. Coming in and out, making their bags and then leaving, right? Saudis realize this. We're like, no, if you want to do business here, you're going to have a regional headquarter or a headquarter, and you're here for a longer term, at least, right? Not this like 1 year in and out kind of stuff. So Saudi has started to play the game very differently now. That's another shift as well. I can go into a lot more stuff, but I'd say these are the main kind of two things: people-orientated, long-term focus. These are probably the two main things. And then in terms of like, what do I prefer? I'll be really honest. I'm thinking about splitting my time half and half between London and Saudi, particularly the summer months. It's a little bit difficult out there.
Yeah, must
unless you're a fan of a 24/7 sauna, or you're a fan of a being out in being in an air-conditioned environment all the time. But it's wonderful. I think the beauty of Saudi, and I'll give you a quick example. I did an event out there.
Yeah.
Where non-sponsored, we invited a few startups and a few VCs from the UK. They paid for their own tickets, own accommodation within 2 weeks, within just a 2-week notice. They decided to join us, and that just is a testament to Vision 2030 and what's happening out there. And it's really wonderful. I suggest people to who are interested to actually do check out Saudi, check out Riyadh, check out Dubai. You'll have seeing is believing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on out there as well. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm splitting my time evenly between UK and Saudi right now.
I see, that's great. So, I mean, back to the first point we had, you said that you're running 3 businesses at the same time, perhaps even more inside the same bracket. How do you manage all your time? Because I know that for young people specifically, time management is an issue. That's how, they're not as productive as they need to be to get the job done. So what advice would you have for young people who are perhaps working on having an improved time management skill so that they can run 5 businesses at the same time?
100% it's possible. The way that I do it is, first of all, in terms of looking at myself as a business, right? So what's my L&D department? Am I learning? Am I constantly learning something? Then my business is kind of, I split my time in terms of weekly stand-ups with every single team that I'm working on. So for example, with the Angel Syndicate, we do stand-ups with every single kind of, so that way you've got a heartbeat, so they don't die out. If that makes sense. And that heartbeat has to be there, in my opinion.
24/7.
Like this idea of a weekly stand-up. Then if I were to go into kind of like personal productivity a little bit, I would say understand. So there's something called the Eisenhower matrix, that people talk about all the time, which is like splitting your tasks into quadrants, and having that to-do, not just having a to-do list, but a more dynamic to-do list, which is split up into kind of very urgent, not so urgent, delegate. But I look at it in a slightly different way, which is think about what tasks give you energy and what tasks take energy away from you. If you add a task in your day that gives you energy, be it painting, be it swimming, or whatever it is, or be it kind of listening to your favorite podcast, that should be there between the tasks that take away energy from you. That's how you manage your energy, which will then help you manage your time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the core of managing your time, from my perspective, is managing your energy. Because if you've got the energy, you'll be able to manage your time and also work productively. And that's where the flow state kind of course comes in as well, which I won't go into, but a shameless plug right there as well. And yeah, it's ebbs and flows though, right? Like I can say to you I'm in flow state all the time, but hell no. Like I'll have my down days and I'll have super non-productive days, but there's always tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like trading, so long as it's 51% good and 49% bad, then you're still on the positive.
100%.
And that's still great.
I want to ask these questions to you because I know you're doing really, really well in your space as well, and maybe I'll do a podcast just to bring you on.
Yeah, of course.
And ask you all these questions which you're asking me, because I'd love to tap into your brain and your routine as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we can always set up new meets.
Nice one, man.
That sounds great.
For sure, we'd love that.
So I have just one more question.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully you're going to be speaking to thousands of young entrepreneurs. What's one piece of advice that you give them, knowing that you've been through the journey, in order for them to, succeed in whatever sort of business it is that they want to succeed in?
Yeah, a really good thought that comes to my mind straight away is try to understand yourself through pushing yourself a little bit. Now, this sounds like it's anti-woke and anti-everything that you could probably see on social media and stuff, but do try to see where your boundaries are in terms of the examples I'm giving you is how long can you work continuously on a particular task? How far can you push yourself in terms of networking? How far can you go in terms of doing the stuff that you hate, be it public speaking or be it kind of, researching, deep research, whatever it is. Try to understand yourself by doing hard things.
Yeah.
And that could be working out, that could be doing a marathon, a half marathon, whatever it is. Try to do something hard, particularly in the case of business, to understand that's the only way you'll understand who you are. Do that, and the rest of your days will be a lot easier, in my opinion.
Do the hard stuff and you figure out what's the easy stuff after.
Yeah, exactly. So
Oh,
then you
that's
can
great
set up your life.
advice. That's great
Nice one.
advice.
Appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you for coming
Appreciate
on.
it, man. No, thank you for seeing me,
Perfect.
man. Really.